Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 241st episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the KMF Collective Studio with me today, I have coach at One Fellowship Fitness and former collegiate runner, Kathryn Hipp. How are you doing, Kathryn?
I'm doing great, Katie. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking time to be part of the show, share your story with us. Can you share with us where you grew up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Sure. I grew up on a farm, actually, outside of Gainesville, Florida, home of the University of Florida and the Gators. So I actually grew up being a huge Gator fan and being in a collegiate town. I think that just kind of opened up the world of sports from the get-go. We would go to, volleyball games or gymnastics meets or whatever. It's just sports were always going on in our town. And so we could go to all kinds of things and see all kinds of different sports. And then my parents were always huge football fans. So grew up watching a lot of football too. And from the beginning, I just was always very active. My parents encouraged athleticism, and just we had 40 acres to go run around in. So I think that's where my running started, was way back then.
Man, that's so cool, growing up on a farm. So having all that land, was running then kind of innately within you from the start? Did you play a bunch of other sports before deciding you wanted to pursue running?
I did play a lot of other sports, but I do think running was innately in me from the beginning. Our driveway was about a quarter mile.
Wow.
And my dad would get to the front of the driveway and he'd open the gate and come through. And every time he would be like, "Okay, get out of the car." And we would have to get out of the car and run home from there. And I'm the oldest of three, so it was always a race.
Of course.
And he would either drive alongside us and be like, let's go. Or he'd just take off and he'd be like, catch me. So he was always encouraging running from the beginning. But then I played lots of other sports too. I was a bit of a tomboy, I would say. And my closest cousin was a boy my age, and his dad, my uncle, was always coaching something. And anytime he was coaching baseball, I would just join that team. I didn't really even think about it, that it was a boys' baseball team. I was just always on their team. And I wasn't very good at it, but he would say I would turn cartwheels in the outfield, but I got to be part of it and got to learn how to hit and catch and all that kind of stuff. When I got a little bit older and ready for middle school sports, I went to a small Catholic school, 1st through 8th grade, and we had all the sports. So I played volleyball and I did cheerleading and I did track there. And I think that's where I started realizing that track was just something that fit for me. It was something that athletically I was best at.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What a great memory. Of your dad opening the door and like, all right, go, just start running. I love that. And then too, being able to play different sports, like taking your hand at baseball and seeing, just in different ways that you could kind of grow into your athleticism. But then in middle school, like you're saying, really coming into your own, having track really take your heart. So at that time, Kathryn, when you really decided, okay, I love track, I love running, wanting to kind of go in, into this sport of running, did you at that time know, okay, I want to go to college or I want to see how far I can take this journey? Or is it really just, I love this sport and I'm just going to see what happens?
At that point, I was still kind of willing to do anything athletic wise. So my first year in high school, I played some volleyball, I played some softball. And then my second year of high school, we moved from Gainesville down to Tampa, Florida. And I started a much bigger high school. I went out for the volleyball team and I didn't make it. And it was the first time I'd ever not made a team. which can be hard, especially coming into a new town. So then I really didn't know what to do with myself for a little while. And I remember one day in the hallway, one of the PE coaches, who happened to also be the girls cross country coach and track coach, saw me, and he was like, "You look athletic. You're going to come out for track." I was like, "Oh, I am?" He's like, "Yep, track is starting soon and you're going to come run for me." And that was kind of really the start of my more, I guess, serious running, because I didn't know it, but I was getting into a really good high school level cross country and track team. So our coach led, while I was there, 3 of the 4 years that I was there 3 years, but 3 of those 4 years that I would have been there, they won the state title 3 times and was runner up once. He just was winning state titles for girls cross country year after year. And he just built a really good team every year. So when he saw me and pulled me into that, he kind of created my new running family. And that's what I did from then on.
Wow. I love that. I mean, being pulled into a team and to having a coach recognize that in you early on, and then leading you into a sport that you, of course, ultimately ended up falling in love with. It's funny. I had a similar story when I ran track. My main event was the triple jump, but I ended up starting doing hurdles later in high school too. And it's because we got a new coach and he said, "You're tall. Why don't you hurdle?" I was like, "I don't know." And so then he's like, "Okay, well, you're going to hurdle." I was like, "Okay." So it's like, but then, it works. So you just kind of dive into it. And if you already loved running, you already loved kind of the nature of it, then it feels like that natural next step, that natural next progression. And so Kathryn, for you, I mean, having that coach call it out in you and realizing, okay, this is a home for me. This is a team I love. I want to go after cross country and track. So at that time then, did it kind of flip a switch in you and made you really more competitive and wanting to take your career to the next level? Or again, was it just kind of living in that moment and really thriving with the team that you had?
Probably a little bit of both. I wanted to do my best because I wanted to show up for my team. And I was never the top of our team. We had just some amazing runners that went on. I think we had 6 seniors my senior year on the cross country team, and all of us went on to run in college somewhere.
Wow.
And our coach, Roy Harrison, he did a really good job of finding not just talent overall, but kind of honing that talent and encouraging each of us to work through our weaknesses and just to be a team. Like, he would have us all over for dinner and his wife would make spaghetti and we would watch a movie before a big meet, just so we could bond as a team, which I don't know if that happens very often in cross country. It's kind of an individual sport. You still have that team aspect because you're getting a team score and you need all the runners to perform well, but running in itself is it's definitely individual. So I really enjoyed that team aspect of it. And I wanted to always do my best and push myself so that I could just help the team along. So I think after that is when just knowing that I wanted to keep pushing with my team, that just opened up opportunities later on for college.
Absolutely. And you're right. It is, track and cross country are both seen as highly individualized sports. And of course, it's because you're out there and you're running for yourself, you're competing for yourself, but it's so much more than that. And especially if you've been a member of a cross country squad or a track team, that's just not true. Of course, you're competing individually, but it's not for yourself. It's for the greater good of the team. It's for that overall score. It's wanting to do that for each other. And I think you're right. It has, cross-country teams specifically have that unique bond. You're a small, close-knit group, and you get to foster that and build that together.
Exactly. We definitely have that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kathryn, then looking forward, as college then running started to become, a reality, a next step for you, did you have your sights set on a specific school, or was it just or did you was running not even the primary pull for you to go to that next level? Was it you were looking specifically at a academic or a specific major? What was kind of that next step looking like for you?
When I started to look at colleges, the only parameter I had was my parents said they wanted it to be in the Southeast, so I wouldn't go too far.
Yep.
And so I looked at all different colleges, big ones and little ones, and I ended up at Auburn for a couple of reasons. I think first, when I came on the campus for a visit, it felt like home, and I think other Auburn alumni can attest to that. That just the campus just is a very homey, sweet little town, and so when I got there, it felt right. And then they also had a cross country team that I could walk onto. And they had spots for me, and they had a coach that was excited to have me come on board. And I wasn't necessarily looking for a scholarship opportunity anywhere. I was kind of looking for the right fit of a college with the option to run, and I found that at Auburn. So I was glad to have that. And having grown up in a big college town like Gainesville, where the University of Florida is, I loved SEC football and wanting to be part of an SEC school. So Auburn was perfect for me.
Yeah. It sounds like it. And two, having the opportunity, because is Auburn's cross country team also a Division I program?
It is.
That's amazing. I mean, having the opportunity to go to one, finding a school you genuinely loved, and then two, being able to walk onto a Division I program and really, take your hand at it. So, Kathryn, I mean, falling in love with Auburn, knowing it was a place for you, and then two, having that kind of cherry on top of being able to walk on the team. Did you initially have the chance to compete? Did you ever compete in any of the meets, or was it just primarily focused on practice, or what was your cross-country transition like into college?
I did get to do some meets, and then I kind of just, you just as a distance runner, they just kind of keep you on throughout the season. I mean, then there's indoor track in the winter, which I had never gotten to try before. So I got to do a meet with that, and it's very different. It's like that tiny track.
Yeah.
So I'd never gotten to try that before. We don't have indoor track in Florida. Everything's always outside. So that was very cool. Got to do a little bit of that, and then went into the track season in the spring and got to do just one or two big track meets with Auburn through that.
Wow.
So it was a lot of training and a lot of just being part of that team. I think the training caught me off guard, though, because it was a lot more than I had ever done before. And just that next level was a little bit more intense than I was probably expecting.
Right. I mean, navigating that transition from being a high school athlete and then being a college athlete and a Division I college athlete, no less. I mean, handling the rigor of then all of a sudden you're training, and then two, putting on top of that, well, I'm also a student. So navigating being a student plus an athlete plus everything else you probably did. So, Kathryn, how did you kind of handle that, making that transition, balancing schoolwork and then also balancing being an athlete at Auburn?
I struggled a bit. I loved being part of the team and getting that opportunity to be an athlete at a big school like that. And I think for me, just going into a big school like Auburn, having a team, having my people was a huge advantage. And so that was very good for me that I had my little group of people that I knew, and that we were our little family again, just like we were in high school, because we were training together so much, and we were trying to figure out classes, and we were living together in the dorms. So that part was really great about it. But I was also trying to figure out how to live on my own somehow, and how to balance those college courses. And I think it just, after 2 years of doing it, it was just too much for me, and I had to let something go, and it ended up being running. And I also wanted to figure out what else I wanted to do with my college experience. So that's where I went with it next.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes a lot of sense, having it, because I mean, at that point, being an athlete, it takes up so much of your time. And so how do you navigate then? Well, I want to explore other things. So where do I find the time to do that? So having to sacrifice something in pursuit of that. So in that, Kathryn, after those 2 years, deciding to make that transition out of, being an athlete at Auburn, what did you start to set your sights on? Was it primarily then just focusing all in with your studies? Did you take part in other clubs or groups?
Well, I had decided at that point that I thought I might want to go into radio, television, and film.
Wow.
Which ended up being my major under the communications college.
Mm-hmm.
And so I joined the campus TV station called Eagle Eye, and I was a student reporter. It's all student run. And so I did that for the next couple of years and just kind of worked through that. And I thought that's where I wanted to go with my life. And under the safety of the campus, under the little Eagle Eye station, it was great. It was not what I ultimately ended up doing when I got out into the real world of broadcasting. It was a lot harsher than I think I was looking for. So I decided to go in other directions, but I did spend my next couple of years just doing that at Auburn, and that was a lot of fun too. That is actually where I met my husband too.
Aw, that's awesome. Were you guys both student reporters?
He was actually the producer of Eagle Eye, so he was my boss, and I was the young reporter. And he would be so harsh on my stories, and be like, "That just was not. You need to do that better." Or, "That was just not good reporting today." And then once we started dating, he'd be like, "So, and do you want to go to dinner tonight?" I'd be like, "I don't want to go to dinner with you right now. You just totally tore apart my story." So we learned then that if that was going to continue our relationship, that we should not work together ever again.
That's funny. That's such a cute story. But yeah, I mean, learning early then that dynamic just wasn't going to work. I love that. So Kathryn, I mean, then kind of finding another passion going into broadcasting and reporting and learning that about yourself. So looking forward then coming up on graduation and looking into that next transition into, quote, the real world. What did you have your sights set on? Were you trying to apply for jobs specifically within the broadcasting space? Or were you looking already at something totally different?
I did try a little bit once I graduated. I did an internship at a big TV station in Tampa, which was very eye-opening, and also just kind of it was just very cutthroat, and I just saw the way people treated each other, and I just wasn't sure that that's what I wanted my future to look like.
Yeah.
I did try to look for jobs in broadcasting when I graduated, and that was just not going to be the plan for me. And so thankfully I had gotten a marketing minor, and I used that to get a job and went into marketing.
Wow. So that is really cool. And it seems those both do work in tandem. I mean, pursuing media, but then also marketing at the same time. And that's a very, obviously intelligent move to make. And so when you were minoring in marketing, was there something specifically that you thought, oh, I would maybe want to do this or pursue this? Or was it when you started to navigate that transition of realizing broadcasting might not be for me, I want to start going down this path of marketing? So you just kind of figured out what to do next from there?
I think one, it was just I needed a job.
Right. Yes.
and that was my other skill set at that point. The reason I liked broadcasting is I liked telling people stories, and I liked finding out the why behind whatever it is that they were doing, or the big story behind their life. And then marketing has a little bit of that, where you have to kind of get the story out there, right, of a product or a company or a business. And so you, in both ways, you get to be creative. So I think I liked that part of marketing. And that's what helped me to move forward in that.
Yeah. I love that too. That's a really good point about just kind of about that whole industry. And so then, Kathryn, looking forward then from there, so deciding, okay, I'm going to go after marketing. What was that next step like for you then, taking a job and then did fitness too. I mean, in pursuit of all of these, going after marketing and then broadcasting and kind of navigating what you were going to do next. Was there a time, or in tandem with that pursuit, did fitness and athletics still play a huge role in your life? Was it difficult to navigate that transition from no longer being an athlete into, being, a person in the real world and competing for jobs? What was that like for you?
It was difficult, I think, just trying to figure out what real life was going to look like at that point.
Yeah.
So I did take a job in marketing. I actually started with a job at a church.
Okay.
And that was great for a few years because I was a kind of a smaller environment. Got to know the people very well, great people there. And then I took a job with a bigger company doing marketing. And that was also fun. There were great people that I worked with. But I don't know that I would ever go back to doing that kind of marketing. It wasn't as fun. It was a little bit more dry, a little bit more boring. So it wasn't something I loved.
What was that? What was the kind of marketing you were doing?
It was like a business to business kind of marketing. So we were helping to promote companies within other companies, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as marketing people do, I got laid off. Yeah. So there was, big reorg, and the marketing people tend to be part of those cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So I got laid off. We had been married almost 5 years now and had already talked about starting a family. And so I went with that. I decided my next job was going to be mom.
Love that.
And it was, and that's what I moved into. And I would say for fitness through all of that, I was doing small things here or there. I would join the Y and I would go try to work out on my own, or I would try to do some different kinds of classes. It was really just trying to figure everything out. I was trying to figure life out, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up, trying to figure out how I'm going to stay fit now, because I don't have a coach telling me what to do anymore. So that's what that whole period of life looked like, I think.
Yeah. I mean, in so many ways, you transitioned in a million different ways all at once, right? Leaving college and then too, at any given point in your life, you make a transition. From being laid off and then transitioning into, I'm going to be a super mom now, which you are, and you're amazing at it. And so it's just learning though, in those transitions, how you're going to thrive, how you're going to succeed, how you're going to move forward. And so Kathryn, in that, like you're saying, fitness was always there. It was just kind of a piece of you, and it was just with you as you walked through these different transitions of your life. When eventually did CrossFit make its entry into your life?
Well, we lived in Tampa for a few years, and I didn't know about CrossFit then, but I did try something that was more of a circuit training. But it used some weight, and I liked the pace of it, and I liked feeling like I was getting stronger. And then we moved up to Atlanta. So we brought the kids up here. We moved up here. We got settled in Atlanta. And right outside of our neighborhood, there was a small CrossFit gym, CrossFit Remnant. And my husband started going there, and he went for over a year. And he was getting stronger and he was getting healthier. At this point in my fitness journey, I was doing jazzercise. I really was.
There you go.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I did it with some friends from school, some other moms from school. But I was not getting healthier. I was not getting more fit. And so when I saw my husband, Larry, doing this and getting healthier and more fit, I was intrigued. And so they did a little internal competition. He was like, come on down. And, there'll be some other kids there and the kids can run around and you can watch and meet some of the people I go to the gym with. So I did. And it was not at all what I expected. I had driven by and seen like barbells and things that were so foreign to me. I had done a little bit of weight training at Auburn, but as runners, that's just never really the focus. at least it wasn't then.
Right.
And so I didn't really understand that world, but I saw all kinds of different people in this CrossFit gym. I saw moms and grandmothers and young athletic types and older people that look slightly out of shape. I mean, just everybody. And so they're all working together, and the atmosphere was so fun. Everybody's cheering each other on and getting through the workouts. And it was about probably less than a month later that I was like, okay, I'm going to try it out. And that's how I got into CrossFit.
And the rest is history, right, Kathryn?
The rest is history.
Yes. So from there, I mean, having your interest really peaked in realizing, one, it wasn't what you thought it was, but two, seeing all these people from different walks of life getting along and supporting each other and really wanting the best for one another. I mean, one, I imagine that looked a lot like a cross country team, right? I mean, bringing people together from all different areas and really supporting one another. So being a part of that team that kind of brings you into the CrossFit world. And so from there, I mean, you obviously drank the Kool-Aid and were all about it and eventually decided you wanted to become a coach. So when did you decide that, and what kind of set you on that trajectory?
Well, I had been doing CrossFit for probably a couple of years. And my husband actually went and got his level 1 first.
Wow.
He was always interested in doing more, and doing the next thing. And he's also a great teacher and coach also. And so he went and got his level 1, and he started coaching some at our gym. But he's also a full-time executive, so he only had limited hours. That was not his real job. That was he still had a day job to go to. So eventually, the real world won out for him, and he wasn't able to coach very much anymore, at least not consistently. And we had talked about me doing the level 1 also. And he actually gave it to me for Christmas one year. he was like, I signed you up for the level 1. I was like, oh my goodness. I guess I should start studying.
Wow.
And so 2 months later, I took my level 1. That was in February of 2018. So I'd done CrossFit for a couple of years. And so I went and took my level 1. And I loved it. I loved the course. It explained so many more intricacies. Is that word?
Yeah.
Of CrossFit to me, all the foundational parts of it, and all the different standards for the movements. So I really enjoyed that. And then from there, I started coaching.
Wow. That's honestly such an amazing thing. I mean, of course, you and, meeting back in college and having similar interests, it seems, in all your different walks of life. But then to have a teammate in your life who encourages you in a lot of different ways, in ways that, okay, I'm signing you up for this and you're going to do it, not because you didn't want to or you weren't going to sign up yourself, but having somebody to push you and encourage you along in those pursuits of your passion.
Absolutely. I agree. And he is my biggest supporter in all kinds of ways.
Love that. That's amazing, because learning that, having those shared experiences, and then too, of course, leading it, having that be such a significant point in your life to lead you to where you are today in coaching. And so from there, Kathryn, taking your level 1, falling in love with CrossFit and loving everything you learned at that course, did you then want to start to coach just as much as you possibly could? Did you start at remnant kind of coaching here and there? What was your journey into coaching from that point on like?
From that point, I just wanted to learn more and become a better coach. So I knew the level 1 just kind of gave me that foundation, and I just needed experience after that. So I did whatever I could. We did a lot of like foundations courses at our gym with people just coming in and kind of explaining the basics of the movements. I started with that, and then I helped with some kids' classes. And then I kind of graduated to shadowing, and then eventually, getting to coach my own classes. And I think I'm still in the pursuit of just getting better at that every day, just by more experience and by helping people out with all kinds of different things. Everybody kind of comes into the gym with their own athletic story. And so it's great to be able to learn from each of them what I can do to help them become better.
Love that. I love that. I mean, being in pursuit of one, you wanting to be better every single day, a better coach, a better athlete, better in every respect. And then two, having that carry over into wanting to impart that upon the athletes, the people that walk through the doors, wanting to help them achieve their personal goals, whatever that looks like for that day, but to help them reach that pinnacle of, I want to be better every single day too.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Kathryn, you said, starting at Remnant and this whole journey started at that gym. And in the last year, earlier this year, of course, Remnant switched over and it came under new ownership, and it is now today One Fellowship Fitness. So can you, from your perspective, I mean, being a coach at Remnant and then today having it be One Fellowship Fitness, can you talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you as a coach and, as Clay took over the gym and, brought us to where we are today? Can you just share your own personal experience through that journey?
Sure. It was great. We were at a point where our current owner was ready to kind of move on and focus on other areas of his life. And he had another business going and he had young girls. And so he went on and did that. And Clay came in at just the right time. And he was really just a breath of fresh air that we needed. He had great ideas and great enthusiasm. And I've really enjoyed working with him and just being part of the same family. It's the same fitness family, but it's also new. It's like his great attitude and enthusiasm is bringing new people in all the time to One Fellowship. And I love seeing our family just expand that way.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, and the way you described it too, it's a family. It's great. I mean, it's a community, but it feels so much more than that. And having those really deep connections with people and those shared experiences, like you said, when you walk in the door every day, when anybody else walks in the door every day, being able to share in that with each other.
Absolutely.
So, Kathryn, growing into the role that you have today as a coach and learning, like you said, being in that constant pursuit of learning and growing, what's on the horizon for you? Specifically in the world of CrossFit, and then too, just personally, what's up next for you?
I just want to keep getting better all the time. I like to do that through my continuing education of CrossFit through different courses and maybe a level 2 coming up. In the next year or two. I got to catch up with Coach Katie and all her great certificates. But I also just love working with such a great team. All of you, all the coaches at One Fellowship push me to be better at what I do. And I think we work great as a team to really build each other up and to just really make a great environment for all of our athletes. And then just continuing to work with so many great people at our gym. It is a family, and that term fellowship is just a really good fit for the atmosphere at our gym because we really do encourage one another, and it's just a great place for anybody of any level of fitness. That's what I really love about CrossFit and about our gym specifically. It's just open for everybody, and anybody can come and get to be better and their healthiest versions of themselves.
Absolutely. I love that. You're right. Fellowship is such a perfect way, I think, to describe the group of people that, inhabit the doors of One Fellowship Fitness. You're right. It's just a great way to describe what we have there. So, Kathryn, I mean, having honestly led such a really incredible life, and I seriously love learning all of this about you, your own journey, athletically, professionally, and then into, of course, today with CrossFit, and looking forward, knowing, of course, you're going to achieve your level 2 in every certificate you set your mind to, and anything else that you look to get after. I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, it's such a good question, too, to make us think about that. I think I want to be remembered for helping people be their best selves. So I do that in so many different ways. I think like as a mom, I'm raising tiny humans that I'm going to send out into the world one day. And each day is an opportunity to help them become better and help them to become their best selves. And those are each individual selves. I'm not just making cookie cutters of me. They have their own strengths and talents. And so every day I learn a little bit more about them and help them to become their best selves. And then in the gym as a coach, I think I do something similar in that everybody comes in with their own athletic history and their own story and their own level of fitness, but they can get better every day. And so figuring out where they're at and how they can get better is something that I really strive for each of our athletes. A friend and a daughter and there's all kinds of relationships if we look out in our lives that we're a part of, and just helping everybody to become better. It seems like a good thing to be remembered for.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.